Hello, young artists. This is a very good time to say to you that art is not just vital, but indispensable, and it always has been. A human life, not long ago, just 20,000 years ago, consisted mainly of doing everything you could to avoid being killed by a puma and strung up in a tree to be snacked on over the next month. And we made art then. We are always going to be making art, so the work that you do as artists is vital. The other thing that's leaping to mind in a time like this is that art gives you access to the deep levels of human consciousness and spirit and sentiment. So to give you an example, I am old enough that I was 30 years old when September 11th happened. And I was disoriented at seeing giant buildings come crashing down and human beings falling to their death and being crushed in the rubble and our entire country seemingly under attack. And not long after that, there was a concert at Madison Square Garden. And the beginning of this concert was an astonishment of artistic know-how. It was dark. And everyone was in there in the dark feeling apprehensive, and I was out there in the dark watching on television. And in the darkness, then some music sort of came out of nowhere, and then one spotlight shone down, and what we saw was David Bowie. And he was dressed all in white, and he was sitting on the floor of the stage, cross-legged, and he had a little Casio keyboard, and he was playing it. He was the source of this music we were hearing, and I didn't quite recognize what the music was, and then he began the song, and he sang, "Let us be lovers, we'll marry our fortunes together." And I burst into tears. And the reason that I burst into tears is that I am old enough that that song has relevance to me. That's a Paul Simon song that was actually probably more relevant to people about 20 or 30 years older than me. But I knew it, and I understood its significance. Paul Simon wrote that song, which is called simply America. And Paul Simon is a quintessential New Yorker, whereas David Bowie was, although ostensibly an Englishman, David Bowie was pretty much from the planet Mars. And it was his way of, the whole presentation of it was what made me suddenly weep. You know, he was dressed all in white like an angel, but he was playing a child's instrument, sitting cross-legged on the floor. And he chose to say, "I am an artist, but I'm also just a human being like you and just as vulnerable as a little child. And I'm also otherworldly and almost godlike in the way I comport myself. But I'm also telling you that today I am a New Yorker." All of that was said more emphatically than if he had said it out loud. And you are young enough, of course, that it would be a different song and a different artist. But there are geniuses, of course, among any generation, and I want you to model yourself on them in moments like this, when everyone around you, including yourself, is deeply confused and is seized by anxiety. Find the deep levers of the human spirit and the human mind and the human heart, and go to work on them. And of course you won't get it right at the beginning, and of course it is unlikely that you or I or anyone we know is a genius on the level of David Bowie, but the geniuses are out there, and maybe you're among them. I don't know, but there's one way to find out. Study hard and make your art. All right, go get them, and we are all going to get through this together as people, as artists, and as a civilization. Thanks.